You mentioned earlier about Wes Streeting, about how he says one thing to one group of people and another thing to another. One thing that has always confused me about the whole ideology of transgenderism is that I understand that trans groups have a lot of power in their lobbying, but why do you think that politicians who, like Wes Streeting, I think, who has he said the words, I've taken it on the chin, about things that he may have got wrong in the past over this particular issue. But what is it that is really pressuring politicians? Because yes, there might be powerful lobby groups that have trans ideology that they want to push. But when it comes to the general public, most people, when you look at the polling, do not believe that people can actually change sex or that men who say they're women should be able to go into women's changing rooms. So what is it? Why is it that politicians are so nervous around this topic? Is it that they're scared about giving ammunition to the Green Party, for example? But it's only been within the last year or so that the Green Party has had more of a surgence in its popularity, but this issue has been going on for so long. Do you have any theory? Because I don't, and I really don't understand this part of it. Why are politicians so scared about talking about this?
Well, in the case of Wes Streeting, he was a former employee of Stonewall, so I don't think we should be completely surprised by the way that he's carrying on with this. In general, I think politicians want to do whatever is most expedient to them. They like to play the field. They rely on public support, and this issue is extremely divisive and contentious. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a clear majority against, for example, medicalizing children or allowing men into women's spaces, because we know from polling that there is. So that's the shame of it, actually, because the majority of the public would be on politicians' side if they stood up for justice and what was right in the name of children and women. But as you've alluded to, there is a very, very vocal minority of these trans activists. They still carry a lot of clout. There's a lot of organizations, public and private, that still kowtow to them, Stonewall's various rating and review schemes and gold stars for employers. And a lot of them have become so reliant upon this. So I think they still wield a lot of power. They can also be a pretty nasty bunch, if I'm honest, and they can get quite violent and nasty. And I've spoken to politicians who have stood up and spoken out against, for example, puberty blockers, and they've received significant threats from some of these individuals. I myself am in receipt of frequent threats to my safety because
So in going into this, that needs to emphasize how important it is for us to get people into office that support removing all of this from society and protecting our children. But it also shows you, because the LGBTQ activists have been so loud and threatening, that this is the reason why the majority of the politicians need to hear from the majority of Canadians if we plan on turning this around and emboldening them to speak out on this. And I believe Action for Canada has been very, very successful in doing this over the last 10 and a half years because of educating the public. So that's why I say you can help us and you can help society by sharing Action for Canada's material. This is what we're doing on this show tonight. We're educating you on how this machine operates, how it is funded, why Bill C-9 came around, who it is that is putting this forward and approving it. And the rubber stamp may very well go through the Senate because they're owned and operated by the Liberal government. It would be a miracle, but that doesn't mean we're still not going to lobby against the Senate and make sure we have a very loud voice on this. And then in the end, we need to continue to apply pressure to the Governor General, because she literally does not have the power, based on the coronation oath, to put legislation forward that violates the biblical Christian standards in Canada. And I know that there are some people that may poo-poo that idea about the coronation oath, but unless you believe it in your gut and you're going to assert this, if you're going to whimper on it and say, it's just ceremonial, well, then expect everybody else will as well. It's not ceremonial. It's a binding commitment, and we need to expect that elected officials are going to hold that up.